Hi, I'm Niran Babalola. I'm the founder of Panvala, and in this video, I'm going to tell you how Panvala works. So the best way to think about Panvala is if you're already familiar with crypto, then you've probably already seen protocol treasuries. There are so many protocols out there, and a lot of them have their own treasury that they use to fund the operations of the network, or maybe they collect fees somehow and they're spending that together. Panvala is like that, except it's a protocol treasury that communities can share. So it's not one treasury for one purpose. It's one treasury to share with as many communities as we can. In real world terms, you can think of Panvala as a community managed endowment. So the best example in the real world of a community managed endowment is universities. University endowments are managed by their community of students, of alumni. They work together to figure out how to fund education, life on campus, etc. What we're familiar with, that vibrant college life, is funded by a community managed endowment, and we want every community to be able to have that kind of tool at their disposal without having to have some sort of extremely wealthy person gift them something to start with. We want you to be able to build up an endowment from scratch, and that's what we do with our Pan token. So in the near term, the reason to be part of Panvala is because it subsidizes communities and matches your donations. So we had 10.26x donation matching last quarter, and we're going to continue doing that each quarter. The multiplier isn't fixed, it fluctuates over time, but last quarter it was 10.26x. In the long term, the reason to be part of Panvala is because what it does is it gives communities an economic tool that rivals corporate equity and national currencies. So you might not have noticed, but right now our society seems really dominated by corporate life and political life, and that's kind of it. And the reason for that, we see it as an economic problem. Corporations have really powerful equity, nations have really powerful currencies, and communities, we just pool our money whenever we can to try to fund what we care about, and it's just not the same sort of deal. With Panvala, we believe we can build an endowment that does give us something that has that same sort of power. And if that succeeds, then instead of having the winner-take-all politics or quarterly earnings reports be the center of our society, I think our communities, the people we choose to work with, could be the center of our society instead. So the way that we do it is by taking a lesson from Bitcoin. So if you're familiar with Bitcoin, you might already know that the fees collected on the network do not fund the operations of the network. The operations are way too expensive for the fees to pay for it. It's also not funded by some wealthy benefactor or some foundation behind the scenes. Instead, it's inflation that's funding this. What you're doing when you buy Bitcoins is you're opting into a system that has promised to dilute your holdings. They create more Bitcoins over time to the maximum of 21 million, and they use those new Bitcoins to fund the security of the network. When you hold Bitcoins, you're kind of a philanthropist that's funding the operations of the network by diluting your own holdings, and that's great, it works. With Panvala, what we do is generalize that concept. We see it as not tied to Bitcoin or tied to blockchains in general. It's just a new kind of philanthropy where you dilute the asset that you hold to subsidize the things you want. So in Panvala, we created a new currency called Pan, and what we do is we dilute the supply of the currency up to the maximum supply of 100 million. And that new inflation each quarter, that's where the matching comes from. That's what we use to subsidize communities in the Panvala League. So in recent quarters, it was about 10x matching. That's going to decrease over time, right? Because we're going to approach the maximum supply of the currency. So we might get like a decade or two of high multipliers like Bitcoin has received over the past decade. But over time, that's going to trend towards zero as we get closer and closer to the max. But we don't want to trend towards zero at all. Like this, what we're trying to build together is a perpetual endowment for any community to plug into. So we have to keep subsidizing our communities in perpetuity. So the idea is to ramp up corporate sponsorships over time. So we're starting with inflation subsidies where we match donations from the new supply. And then we build up corporate sponsorships where they're making donations that provide those subsidies instead. And the reason we think this works is because it's kind of like a sports league where at the individual team level, they can get sponsorships, but they can get much bigger sponsorships when they work together at the league level. We think our communities combined in the Panvala League can get much larger corporate sponsorships than they would be able to get as individual communities. So by working together, we build up this endowment that is first funded by inflation subsidies and then gradually transitions over to corporate sponsorships over time. That's where this endowment comes from. So right now we have 16 communities in the Panvala League, right now meaning mid-November. We're continuing to grow the Panvala League. The target is to have over 20 for this quarter, and then over time to grow to thousands of communities in the Panvala League. We want to share it with as many communities as want to share it with us. And the way we do that within the league is through donation matching. So each community brings in as much donations as they can, as much membership fees, ticket sales for events that their community attends together. They bring in as much of that as they can to earn matching. And then the league's rules encourage each community to own the same share of the PAN token supply as a share of donation credit that they've earned. And that's when you receive the most matching. You get matched no matter what you do, but the most matching is when you own the same share of the PAN supply as a share of donation credit that you brought in. So we want to continue sharing Panvala's treasury because the more we share the treasury, the stronger it gets. Quarter over quarter, we've continued to grow with the number of communities in the league, the amount of donations that we've brought in, and the total value allocated that is within the subsidies from the system, that's been growing as well. So we want to keep sharing it because, again, we're building an endowment from the ground up, and the more we share it, the stronger it gets. So we want your community to be part of Panvala. We want you to be able to benefit from this new economic tool and to help us continue to grow this community-managed endowment for the world to share. Thanks. This is how Panvala works, and we're looking forward to you joining us soon.